Hello, I'm Katie, and I'm Art UK's Learning and Engagement Officer for London and the south of England. Today I'm lucky enough to be joined by artist Robert Erskine. Robert is an English sculptor, designer and broadcaster. He is known for creating public monumental sculptures, and in this masterpiece at home, we'll be focusing on his 8-foot-tall sculpture titled White Rhythm. Robert will also demonstrate a making activity that we think viewers might like to try. This activity will then form part of our homeschool series, which is available online. Let's go ahead and meet Robert now. Hello, Robert. How are you today?
I'm very well, Katie. How are you today?
Yeah, not bad. Just enjoying the lovely sunshine.
Good. So am I here in sunny Suffolk.
Excellent. So, I guess let's start with telling the viewers a little bit about yourself and your work and your practice as a sculptor.
Right. Well, I work as a sculptor. I have a lovely studio here in Suffolk, and I like to work in metals predominantly, and I like to enjoy nature and mechanical things and industrial things, and these things seem to relate to one another at certain times depending on what I happen to be sensitive to. So mechanical things lead me into all sorts of fascinating areas. If I hear a car engine, I'm off. I get quite excited by this. Anything which moves or propels itself, I'm right there, and I like to know how these things work. Whilst all of this is going on, there's another side which I enjoy looking at, and that's the movement of people in the cityscape, in our towns and cities. And although I live in a rural setting, I regularly go to London. And of course, when you go to London, not now at the moment because we're in the middle of a pandemic, the streets are full and humming and buzzing, and you get huge crowds of people and shoppers. And for nearly 30 years, would you believe, I've been fixated with looking at crowds of people, the movement that they make, and the ballet that they create. So what I'm talking about here is the view of looking at people from a side view. So if you're in your car and you happen to be fortunate enough to get into London and not stuck in too much of a traffic jam, you often see framed in the windscreen of your car shoppers trying to cross the road in front of you if you're at the head of a traffic jam. So that's another little area that I'm particularly excited by. And the other thing is that I tend to have an open mind to all sorts of things. It could be music, it could be reading, it could be just going for a walk somewhere and you see something and something suggests itself. So these are the areas and these are the things which make me tick as a sculptor. And being a sculptor, I make things in 3 dimensions and also at the same time in 2 dimensions, because I do a lot of drawing and a lot of sketching. And I also carry an iPhone with me, which is very handy for taking photographs when I see something.
Would you say all these things that you've spoken about and influence you are brought into your work? Is there a particular piece that you feel this is predominant in?
Yes. Now, there's a series of pieces that I did which have the name rhythm in them. And one in particular is a very large piece of sculpture. It's called White Rhythm. And White Rhythm is something which I keep going back to. It's not that I keep copying it, but after a long time of making little studies of sculptures about the movement of people and really looking at just the rhythm and the patterns, not trying to put details in that you can recognize immediately, such as heads or hands or shopping bags or clothes or coats. It's the basic rhythm. It's this verticality of looking at people when they are in motion, which is often broken up. And these things are very, very complicated. They are complicated sequences, but white rhythm is the one that I felt I was beginning to get close to what it was that I was seeing and feeling. And that's really what it's about. It's about seeing and feeling what you think you are sensing. And that is the journey, because what often happens is you start something and it doesn't quite go where you think it was going to go, but white rhythm, that is the number one. That was the one that the hammer banged on the top of the nail, and I thought, this has excited me. This is something which is clicking for me.
And where's white rhythm today? Where in the world?
Now, white rhythm is actually on the coast of Holland. Holland only has one coast. So it's on the North Sea, and peculiarly, it's facing Suffolk. And there's a bit of a story as to how that all happened. Basically, I was asked to represent Great Britain at an international sculpture symposium back in 1999, just towards the end of 1999. I was asked to go and join 10 other sculptors from countries such as Italy, Spain, France, Germany, Czechoslovakia, so on and so forth, who were member states at the time. I had at that time in 1999 an idea. I'd made a sketch model known as a maquette of a crowd piece, which really was white rhythm. So I took this with me in the back of the car, and I drove over to Holland, and I got to this fantastic place, met all these other sculptors, and each one had a completely different idea to the next as to what they were going to make. And my piece was about bringing the crowds of people that I'd seen at Oxford Street and Regent Street in London onto the seashore on the beach in Holland. And the backdrop to all of this was this steelworks, which has lots of smoke, lots of white clouds and water. There's lots and lots of noise. It's a big industrial site right on the edge of the sea. It's absolutely wonderful. And that's where I went and made my white rhythm. And the piece is very big. I think it's about 8 meters high and I don't know, 20-something meters wide. It's a big, big thing. It weighed 13.5 tons, which came as a great surprise to me because I didn't think it was going to weigh so much. But you'll see from the exercise we're going to do soon that you use quite a lot of paper for our white rhythm exercise, which is very similar to the thing that I did in Holland. Here we are. As they say, here is one that I made earlier. This is a paper, almost a replica of the sculpture that's in Holland. It's not complete, but if I turn it around very, very slowly, you'll see that it's made of lots and lots of pieces of curved paper. I call them modules, which fit into one another, and they lay one on top of the other. And you've got these two little legs here, and there's a third one there. And then that sits down on the ground. And if I just tilt the camera, you'll see what that looks like. I will give a little running commentary and you will see what it is that I'm doing. So I've already mapped these out. So I've taken one of these and I've laid it out here. And I've also forgot to mention, you must have a pen or a pencil. That's also very, very important. So using the template, you draw it up, as I've already done, all the way around, like that. Repeat that all the way around the paper. A good idea is to get edge on so you can use as much of the paper as you possibly can, all the way around. Draw it round, as I've done here. And you don't have to do everything in an exact sequence. You can do 4 or 5 of the large ones, as I've done here. And you've also got one of the small ones here as well. So you can mix these up as well. So you put this over here, this round here, mark it up. And then whilst you're doing that, you can have some fun. If there's a bit of room in the paper, you can use one of the long, thin ones. So you mark those up, like so. And then with your scissors, you cut out your shapes. So we'll do this very, very quickly. And we'll go around here, on this one here, go straight up the edge. And I'll just give you a demonstration as to what you've got to do with each of these pieces. You cut off the ends and you'll notice that they're not absolutely parallel. And that is very, very important. And now you're going to do what I had to do when I was in Holland, except I used an industrial rolling machine. And the industrial roller allowed me to put a huge plate of steel in and roll it to get a fluted shape. So what you do is you put your fingers like this and you squeeze it gently. You can fold it even if you like. You pull your fingers up and down and you've got yourself a flute. Exactly the same shape and form as I created on a much, much bigger scale in the steelworks in Holland. So you do the same thing again here. So you get one of these long ones. You've got to be very patient. You mustn't rush it. And if you find that you can't exactly fold it the way that you want, you can even put it on the table, just gently fold it, run your fingers through it like so, and then you've got yourself one of the long flutes. So you make up multiples of these mixed up shapes using the templates. If you don't think it's big enough, you can copy the shape that I've made and you can actually make these shapes bigger. It's up to you as to how big you actually want to make these modules. But in a very simple way, you start off by laying out one of these like so and like that, and you get your glue stick. You run some of the glue on the inside. You don't have to line it up. Get it at a slight angle, like so. So don't line the one you're gluing onto the one underneath. Get it at a slight angle and then just hold it down. Run your finger down. And then you've got the start of your first element of white rhythm. And all you do is you just keep going for as long as you possibly can, and you keep cutting out as many of these templates as you like. And let's say, for example, we've taken one of these long ones. I find that if you put the long one along that edge of your second module, as I call it, you just put some glue on there. Just put it on the inside, hold it down. All of a sudden, you're beginning to get the beginnings of the white rhythm sculpture. So it's up to you as to how many of these you want to do. I would suggest that you think in terms of doing at least 30 or 40 of these modules which you stick and glue and lay out in exactly the way that I have just shown you. And what you do is you keep doing this till you've got a shape or a form that's about as wide as that. So you can see where we started. We started here, so you've got to go all the way over across. So if we get our ruler and we measure that, we're looking at, I would say, about a foot. So a foot in length is a great white rhythm on its size as a model or a maquette. Now the other thing is, I'm going to jump. In order to make it stand up, you're going to make some feet. So you can see there are these feet. This is almost the same way that white rhythm itself on the coast in Holland stands up. And how you make those is very, very easy. You cut out a piece of paper about as big as that. All you do is you fold it like so. Get that nice and flat. All the way around as tight as you can. There just to hold it down. Of course, you're going to get sticky fingers, but that's part of the fun. And you don't use the entire length, but you glue one of these, work out the actual height that you want white rhythm to be. So it's standing off the tabletop. There's one of your feet, and all you do is you put glue on the underside here, and you glue it inside one of these rolled sections here, and there you have one of your supports. And what you do is you work out the best way and the best place to put it. That's part of the fun. I'm not going to tell you exactly where you're going to put it, because you've got to understand how things stand up and balance. It won't take you very, very long. So that's the basics of making a white rhythm module or a white rhythm sculpture. And the other thing that you can do, if you feel like it, if you've got any felt tip pens or charcoal, you can actually, if you feel like it, you can shade in some of the paper modules that you've made. It's up to you as to what you want to do. If you want a white rhythm, then you use a white card. If you want to have even more fun, you can actually take your card and put it on any rough surface that might be outside, for example, brickwork, outside on the decking, in the pathways that are outside where you live, even on the pavement if it's clean. Get a soft pencil or a crayon and you can rub that texture onto the paper, and then using the templates which you're going to be seeing, you can cut out your textured drawn paper into the same modules, and then you'll have a very interesting result. I decided on mine that I just wanted to do it in white because it reminded me so much of my piece that's in Holland.
Excellent, thank you.